Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this Friday. I know for about half the state, you might be on a snow delay or even a canceled day, so thank you for taking the time to join us. This is our very first School Counselor of the Year series webinar. We're giving this new series a try. And we have Kinzee Bryte with us today. She is the ISCA Elementary School Counselor of the Year for 2018. And she's just going to do a really informal presentation today. She's very interested in engagement and hearing from the attendees. So if you have questions throughout, please type those into the question bar. And we're going to make this a really interactive session. But she's going to tell us all about her program, her experience with the process, and anything else that she might find helpful. So we're going to record the session. We're going to keep everyone on mute. If you have a question, you can type it in or you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you and you can talk with Kinzee and the rest of the group. So without further ado, Kinzee, thank you so much for taking the time today and it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Like Britt said, I actually am at school all day today. So we have snow in Adel, Iowa, but didn't cancel or delay anything. So kind of one of those long January weeks here. So hopefully everybody's as happy as I am that it's Friday too. So I thought I'd just start out by introducing myself a little bit. So I am currently in a building that has pre-K through second grade students. And this is a new position for me just this year. I've been in the ADM school district for 5 years, but kind of as a result of this award, had the opportunity to stay in one building just with kindergarten through second grade students. So kind of speaking to that a little bit, I had previously been between two schools, DeSoto Intermediate, which was 3rd through 5th grade, and Adel Elementary, which is kindergarten through 2nd. And just really was kind of quietly advocating for more school counseling represented at our district. So that did happen this year. So it's my first year. I got to choose which building to stay in, and I struggled with that a lot because I've always in my career been in a K through 5 building and hadn't really thought about which age group I preferred because I really enjoyed all of them. But now that I've been at this K2 level, I really like those little ones and just the social skills that I can teach at that age level. So past positions I've been in before ADM, I was in the Waukee School District for 11 years, 10 of those as a school counselor. And I was between two buildings, Easton Elementary for 5 years, and then Schuler Elementary for 5 years. And just had a different perspective on school counseling there than at ADM, just with a little bit different clientele and different, ways that the school counseling program is presented in different districts. So I really feel like I've grown a lot in the last 5 years as a counselor. When I was in Waukee, I had an at-risk counselor at my building with me. So there was 2 of us in a building of about 700 students, and just being able to kind of rely on each other and share that responsibility. I envy those of you that have that still. But I hadn't had that at-risk experience. And so I feel like I have a more well-rounded view of what school counselors are doing because of the time I've spent here at ADM too. And then previous to being in Waukee, I spent 3 years in the Norwalk School District. And so I just feel like I have a really good perspective on different sizes and communities, obviously in the metro area since I live around here. But something I do want to say before I go too far is that getting an award like this is humbling, but also kind of puts perspective on everyone that's helped you in your career. And I just wanted to make sure that I recognize those people and just acknowledge that the hard work of a lot of people contribute to me getting this award, not just what I do in my program and what I share today. I have had amazing administrators, and we all know that there's teachers that welcome you into your classrooms, and that's so much easier to be in there and help those students when the teachers are on board with your program too. So advocating for what you do for students and just having that open door and that you want to help kids is just so important. So I do want to thank my counseling team and all of the administrators I've worked with and teachers, because their hard work contributed to my this award I received too. So That's a little bit about me. Some things that are, oh, I guess I skipped that slide, sorry. Some things that are important to me in my counseling program are just really, I emphasize relationships and connections with kids. So I read a quote recently that has really just stuck in the back of my brain, and it was, think of kids as connection seekers instead of attention seekers. So I think a lot of times we use that attention seeking, especially in my level, K2. And I see that firsthand with kids, that they really just want our time and our connection. And so I really try to use that as the foundation for my relationships with kids and families, and just start by connecting with them. And I do a lot of play with kids, so doing what they want, playing, and then building that relationship and trust so that your counseling goals with them are easier to attain. Some things that are important to me in teaching with students are empathy skills. So I feel like just in our society in general, just the kindness and noticing other people and being accepting of all the differences we have in our world, and just using that empathy and teaching it to the students we have at school, and giving them those skills for real life experiences. I do a lot of feeling and self-regulation teaching and practicing at my school. So I hope that by the time my second graders leave my building, they are very fluent in using iMessages and recognizing how those different stressors or worries or just big emotions affect their body, and kind of labeling that for kids. And then also obviously teaching their coping skills and how they can react appropriately in different settings and situations. And just that self-regulation, I think, has just gotten so huge with kids, and all the different things that affect them and are, going on in their lives that maybe they can't control, but they can control their own regulation. So some big key points that I'm kind of focusing on right now in my program. Obviously also those social skills, and I'm starting to realize as I raise middle school boys of my own, that really impact of social media that we always talk about, and how just establishing good friendships and good friendship skills, and that, self-confidence is really going to play into the world that our kids are living in outside of school and in school. Just, we all know that from social media, but using the time we have with kids to teach just those soft skills, those friendship skills and empathy and just the kindness, I think those are just going to role play or, roll over into the challenges they're going to face with social media and technology in the future that we just can't even predict all of. So, and then the last thing I guess that's really important to me as a counselor is just modeling happiness and joy for my students, and just being present. So, walking in the hallway, being in the lunchroom, and the at recess, and any minutes you have, that going out into your schools and being present with kids, so that they see you, and they are building that connection with you, and that you're modeling the happiness and joy that every human desires too. So that's a little bit about me as a counselor. So I thought I'd start with some experiences that this award has given me. And I know there's probably some people tuning in that are nominated for this award, and maybe some that are just interested in hearing about my program. So I'll try and kind of go back and forth to get everybody's needs met. So the experiences that this award has given me are, I didn't even realize, I guess, at the time. But obviously one of the biggest things is just recognition for the hard work that we do as counselors, because a lot of what we do is behind a closed door or over the phone with parents. And although they're all appreciative and thankful, sometimes we don't see the fruits of our labor until later. And so I think one of the biggest things was this just like kind of reaffirms like all of that hard work that we do, all of you I know are listening to day in and day out, that just somebody noticed. So I also got to be at the State House last fall when Governor Reynolds signed the proclamation in support of school counselors. So that was something that I never would have got to be a part of if it wasn't for this award. And just what an amazing experience for our state, and to be with other counselors there that had earned the Districts of Distinction and other school counselors of the year. It's just really a neat opportunity that I hadn't predicted ahead of time. So it really translates into things that you get to be a part of that you wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, it's worth the time. So I hope those of you that are listening that were nominated, take your time and do all of the components of it, and that it's you see the value in it also. It also just gives validity to your program a little bit. So, although everyone works hard, it's kind of showcasing what you do all the time. So, and all of us can do that, advocating for our programs. So those of you that have been nominated, so this is a little section on some tips that these were shared with me actually, similar webinar when I was a nominee, and I watched it and I just took everything in and thought that's great advice, and I modeled my own process similarly to what I heard. So I was actually nominated by a Drake intern student I had, which is so flattering because they spend day in and day out with you, and I think my biggest strength as a counselor is the relationship skills that I have with students and staff and families. So the fact that she saw that very personally and nominated me was really flattering to me, I guess. So there are several steps to the application process. So once you're nominated, then you get access to a website where you go in and enter all of your information. So a few of the things that I did before the school year was over, because you have until like the middle of September, I believe, until everything's due. So I tried to get done what I could during the school year that I was already doing. So, you need to submit your SMART goals and your data. And I did that by the end of that spring semester, just because it's something I was doing already. I'd already written my SMART goal earlier that year, and we're collecting data all the time. So for me, that was an easy one I could check off my list. So that was one of the first things that I put on to the website, was my SMART goal and data. And then before the end of the school year, I also did the video portion of the process where you are recording a little bit about your program and yourself. And how I went about this was, we have a audio video class at the high school, and I thought, because my role is so closely tied to students, why wouldn't I use students to help me do this portion? So I emailed the teacher of this class at the high school and asked if she could have a couple students come and help me with this, and it just worked perfectly into their curriculum, because at the time they were working on a project that they had to showcase a class or a course or a sporting team or club at school. And so 2 senior girls came over and recorded me kind of around my day at school. And then they put some text and a sound to it, and then I just cleaned it up a little bit to make it how I wanted it to look. But I thought that was great because I involved kids, and it kind of took a little of that pressure and time off of my plate. So I had those 2 things done before the school year was over. Then a trick I also did was, I got a little notebook. I always have a notebook on my desk, just to jot quick things down. And I put each page, I put a question at the top of it that was in the application process. There's kind of some short essay questions. So when I was going through my day, just in my counseling role, if something came up that I felt like, oh, I do that, kind of like your artifact collecting for your evaluation cycle, then I would just jot a note down about it. So then that summer, when I went back to formally answer my questions, I had all these notes already about what I do. So it was a lot easier than just sitting there and thinking back. So that was a big tip I think I would do. But then those essay questions, I just worked on one at a time over the summer. A lot of us are so busy during the day that I think might be one of the hindrances of people not going through with the application process. So that's a trick that makes it a little less daunting and feeling like such a big task. And then the one other thing that is required is that you have letters of recommendation from I used my 2 principals. And so I feel their stress during the school year as well. So that was something I asked for them to do by the first day of school that fall. So, and theirs both came in to me like in August when they, were back to school and thinking about things, but maybe not at the end of the school year when everyone's stressed and wrapping things up. So that's a little bit about how I kind of handled that application process. Does anybody have any specific questions about that before I kind of move on? Or and if you do, just
if you do
email.
have a question, go ahead, type it in, or you can raise your hand on the menu, and I'll unmute you if you have a question, or you can type it in. We'll give you a second to do that.
Okay.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and keep going, Kinsey, and if anything comes in, I'll let you know.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so a couple other things that I felt like, and I think it's hard for us as counselors because we're usually very modest, and it's hard to present that our program is great, but you kind of do need to do that a little bit in that process. And really, even if you're not a nominee for an award, we should be doing that all the time to advocate for our program. So I really just thought about what are 2 things that I think I'm doing well that other people maybe want to know about, or that would maybe help me stand out for some recognition. So the 2 things I chose were that relationships and connection building, and I tried to showcase that in the video, and I just really keep that as a focus day to day in my counseling program, just that human connection, and just really emphasizing that time I give to kids. And then the other one is just the use of technology. So a couple of things that I've been doing that I think if any counselor can take away anything from this webinar, I think these would be great things to try. It seems a little time engaging at first, but once you try it and do it a few times, they're very, very simple. So 2 things with technology I've been doing. One is we're asked to do social stories so often for students, and just what a good reteaching for them on the skills that we're teaching when they're with us in our rooms. So I have been making my social stories into iMovies. So I go around to the students and take pictures of them. So, a typical one is I can follow directions like a kindergartner. So I take a picture of the student sitting in floor basics, sitting with their hand raised, the teacher calling on them, then completing a work task at their table, and then maybe a smile from them or some feeling of satisfaction or reward that they did what their teacher asked. And so I take those pictures and I just take them on my phone and then airdrop them to my computer. And then I go into iMovie and just make it a little fancier for them with, labels and transition pages and whatever. And then I add some fun sound effects and upload that iMovie. Oh, the last thing I also do is I record my voice over, so I'm reading the words of the social story. So, if the title is I can be respectful like a kindergartner in my classroom, then my voice is reading the words over top of the pictures. And so then after my voice is on there, I upload those to my private YouTube channel, so I can make a QR code out of the video. So I have it on my private YouTube, and then I use that URL code at the top and put it into a free QR code generator, and then it translates into that QR code that you see. And then I cut that QR code out and I tape it to the student's name tag on their table spot or their desk in their classroom. And then, a QR code can be read by any camera on a device. So it could be the teacher's cell phone, it could be any laptop in the classroom. So anytime that they need reteaching or pre-teaching at the beginning of the day, or there's been lots of off-task behavior during the small group lesson or the whole group lesson, then that teacher can ask the student to, why don't you go watch your social story in the hallway? So they grab an iPad, they scan their QR code, and they go watch it privately in the hallway. So on an iPad or whatever device they're using, they've scanned their QR code on their name tag. Now they're walking to the hallway and I'm essentially reading their story to them without being present there with them. So it's giving them access to, one, their social story, and also time with me through my voice on that social story. A couple other benefits that this has brought up is I also share their iMovie social story with their families. So I'll send that QR code through an email to their parents so they see what they're working on. And a huge success I've seen with this is I've made a binder of these QR codes for in our principal and assistant principal's office, and they will use them when there's an escalation or some kind of office referral. If they'll look in there, they know now who has a social story, and they'll scan them while they're in their office. So, the students calm down, and then they're talking over the situation with them. They'll use their social story that I've created with them just by having that QR code. So it's access to that everywhere in our building for kids. So that's one thing that I've really been proud of and has been a big success. Took a little learning on how to create them, but I've used them so often, and I just feel like they're so much more valuable than that paper copy of the story that they can flip through and look. And it requires another adult to read it to, my students anyway, that are little and maybe can't read all those words. So that's one. So social stories using technology. The other way I've been using technology is I've been doing what I've been calling guidance extension lessons. So at my school, I am in classrooms 1 quarter for each grade. So right now we just switched to our 3rd quarter at school. So I just started in 1st grade classrooms for guidance. So I have, about 9 weeks or 9 lessons with that grade, which I love the way that my principals have set that up, because I get my week is such a better balance than being on a specials rotation or being in 30 classrooms every week. So I feel like it's a good balance between having that whole group guidance time, small groups, and individuals by just having 1 grade per quarter. But on the other hand, I felt, compared to my time in Waukee, I was in the classrooms for 30 lessons a year instead of 9. So I was feeling that discrepancy there a little bit, and how am I going to get my curriculum taught, and just really the needs of the students. So what can I do to be present in there more? So I started creating these guidance extension lessons, and basically they're me teaching a lesson to their classroom just through the audio video screen. So I actually have I'm going to show you one of them in case you are interested in seeing a little bit of it. Okay, so this one was called How to Make New Friends. It was one of the first ones I did, so it kind of introduces the whole idea of guidance extension lessons, and then it talks about how to make friends. So Brittany, give me some feedback if this doesn't show up correctly. Is that coming up, Britt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Hello there, it's Mrs. Bryte again. This year, I'm going to try and make lots of videos to share with your classroom teacher so I can be in your classroom even when it's not your guidance day. I'm going to call these videos guidance extension lessons. So today, for our topic, we're going to talk about how to make new friends. You might have some kids in your class this year that you were friends with last year, or you're friends with in your neighborhood or your sports team. But sometimes we're in a classroom where we don't know other kids, or maybe you're a new student at Adel Elementary. Today, I want to talk to you about some ways that you can make new friends at school. First of all, I want to show you this chart I made. Here are some ideas on how to make new friends. First off, smile at them. Everyone wants to be friends with a friendly kid. So to have a friend, be a friend, smile at new students. Second of all, introduce yourself. That means tell them your name, tell them something about yourself. Maybe who your classroom teacher is or some of your favorite things. Number 3, ask them a question about themselves. Who's your teacher this year? What do you like to play at recess? Are you on a team after school? Who's in your family? What do you like to do with your family? Number 4, invite them to play with you. Maybe you're going to go play on the swings at recess. Ask your new friend if they want to come play on the swings with you. Maybe you see your new friend after school in your neighborhood. Ask them to come play in your backyard on your play set or your trampoline. Maybe you can arrange with your parents and your new friends' parents to have a play date after school. Number 5, of course, we need to be kind to make new friends. We all want to have a friend who is kind to us, so we need to be kind to others too. The story I picked to share with you about friendships is called Chopsticks. Maybe
fast forward it through the story.
Hit it, boys. Do you have someone you feel like is your best friend, just like in the story Chopsticks? I wonder if you're brave enough to venture out, just like Chopsticks had to when his friend bent his stick in half. He had to explore different ways to make new friends and try new activities that he might end up finding are really fun, and he could make new friends doing them. Today, I challenge you to try and make a new friend too. Think about my tips I shared at the beginning. Smile at them and act friendly. Introduce yourself, tell them your name and your classroom teacher and something you like to do. Then ask them a question about themselves. Everyone likes to talk about themselves, so by asking a friend questions, they're automatically going to like you. Invite them to play at recess or in your neighborhood. And most of all, be kind. When you act like a good friend, other people will want to be your friend too. Good luck. Let me know how it goes.
Okay, so kind of just a little taste of, let's see if I can get off of that, what my guidance extension lessons are like. And I don't know if you guys are like I am, but I don't like watching myself on those. But the kids love them, and they, I have them just, when I make them, I just drop them into a file that's in the school counseling on our drive at my school, and then I have a file inside of there that's labeled guidance extension lessons. And so the teachers have used them a couple different ways. Kindergarten uses it, they have it like time slotted in their Friday mornings, and it's always guidance extension lesson time. They're always around 10 minutes, so they know about how long to plan for them. And so kindergarten uses them religiously like that. And then in my first and second grade classrooms, they just use them on an as-need basis. And the great thing about that too is they've given me feedback on what lessons they would like. So for example, I had a second grade teacher that her classroom was just having such a hard time with the size of their problem matching their reaction. So, you know, I'd say the example is like your pencil lead broke, but you acted like the school was on fire. So I did a lesson specifically for their grade about the size of their problem and their reaction. So it's really, I felt, has been valuable. Now, just like everything, some teachers haven't shown a single one of them, but the ones that are showing them, I just feel like that's giving me that much more time with those kids, even when I'm not present in the classroom. So before I started doing those, I had done some research on the flipped classroom or flipped learning. I've seen it, that language used both ways. And, you know, it was a lot of math and science flipped learning. And so I was curious about, like, how can I use this and reach more students in my position and, you know, get my curriculum out there more. I would like to, like, a goal of mine going forward is to just refine them a little bit more and then make my YouTube page public so that other counselors can use them, or even parents, because I've had some feedback that parents will say, did you teach them the kid size problem language? And so I think it'd be valuable just as a parenting tool for them to be able to see the language that I'm using with kids too. So I guess those are kind of a couple things that I'm proud of in my program that I think have really been successful. And I think my use of technology maybe was part of the reason I was selected for the award. So just anything that you can do that's innovative or that you use to reach more kids. When I was doing those, I was split between 2 buildings, like I said earlier. So I was really feeling like I wasn't as present as I wanted to be. So just put me in front of the kids. And they still say to me in the hallways, Mrs. Bryte, we watched your video today. And So they like it too. Okay, that was kind of a lot. So if you have specific questions about those, go ahead and send them in too. Okay, so the next slide, I was going to talk about some positive outcomes, or just any approaches that I've had. When I say, I talk a lot about the connections, focusing on connections and relationships. Some ways that I do that are, I live in the community that I work in, so being involved in kids' lives and activities outside of school. They love it when they see me at the varsity basketball games on Friday, and I can, have those connections with kids. In fact, last Friday night, I was at a game, and there was a little boy that was up on the balcony crying, and I walked over to him, and he just like ran to me like, Mrs. Bryte, I need help. And he couldn't find his parents. And so just all of those little times that you're putting money in the bank with kids is just building those relationships. Like I said, my office is very play oriented, so I can do that easily because I'm in a K2 building. And my 3-5 building, I did a lot of games, playing games and Jenga, and connecting with kids that way. But I find, as I'm sure all do too, that when their hands are busy, even older kids, I assume, then they're more engaged and more willing to talk, and then just sitting at a table looking across the table at you. So like right now, I have things that I find really good, obviously kinetic sand, or something new is My Little Ponies and Barbies and all those little trinkety toys. I find it if it's not something they really have to think a lot about, then they can still talk and learn some social skills while they're at it. Another one is lunch bunches. So I just have lunch bunches almost every day where, it's hard to do a lot of skill building other than social skills because they obviously have to eat their lunch while they're in here too. But teaching manners and the social skills of eye contact and just all of those good practices for kids with your cueing and teaching. But those kind of things are just building those connections with kids that you might need later when you have an escalated student or they're upset about something. A story that I share a lot is a little girl I had this year. She was just really escalating over little things. And so I started doing breakfast and braids with her. And she would come to my office in the morning, and I would do her hair, and she would eat her breakfast, and we would just kind of start her day off on a positive note. And, to this day, that's been going on since early in the fall. If she sees me in the hallway, it's Mrs. Bryte, and she's so excited. And so it doesn't take much. It's just like filling them up and giving them some attention that, it's good for kids anytime if they get that at home or don't. So some positive outcomes with that. Something I've been trying my best at, I felt like a lot of times I was in guidance or in small groups teaching, but I felt like it wasn't transferring. So a focus I've had, and I have a sticky note on my wall that says teach and transfer. So a way that I've been doing this, I had kindergarten guidance I had one from 8 to 8:30 and one from 8:30 to 9 in the mornings. Well, now that I've switched quarters, I'm in first grade classrooms. So I kept that kindergarten guidance time blocked off on my schedule. And now I'm going into the classrooms to help that transfer. So real life situations, and it fits perfectly with them because that 8:30 to 9:30 time is when they're doing centers and the teachers are pulling reading groups. So it's providing another adult in the classroom to kind of help problem solve those little situations. But then it also gives me the time to use that language with kids that we've talked about. Like, is this a little problem? Is this a problem you can fix yourself? Or do you really need to go ask a teacher for help? Or, tiny little conflicts. The other day I was in a classroom and they were doing some snowman craft activity with papers, and there wasn't enough brown strips of paper left for the stick arms. And so we were problem solving. Well, what kind of thing could we do? Do we know where the paper is? Could we go find this? Could we figure this problem out ourselves? Or is this a situation that we really need a grown-up to help us? And, anything that you're teaching, just helping them transfer it to real life situations or situations in their classroom, it's just going to stick in their little brains so much better when we also can impact the transfer moment. So that's something I really have been trying to focus on. I do a lot of that at recess too. So if I have a group that I'm working on, kindness or friendship skills, then I try and go to recess. And obviously it starts by observing them and seeing what issues are happening or what they're doing well, and then kind of interjecting with the cueing or with the what should we do in this situation, just that adult modeling, helping them transfer it. I've already talked about the use of videoing a lot and technology. And then something I'm thinking about is always on my mind is like just continuous growth. And like this webinar, for example, I was telling Britt, I have never done something like this. And just making ourselves uncomfortable is where we grow. So challenge yourself to do something, you know, that doesn't feel comfortable or is hard. And that's where you're really going to grow. And so putting that in front of myself all the time too, like I always want to get better and I want to be doing best practice. So I have to challenge myself to keep doing things that are hard, and that's where you grow too. So with that being said, one of my goals that I'm kind of working on right now too is I've had a ton of feedback about wanting parents wanting me to do some kind of parenting courses. That's kind of been on my mind, and I'll be doing my first little one here at the end of February. And it kind of came out of our PTO here is called PACT, which stands for Parent and Child Together. And each year in November, I go and just kind of present about the counseling program at school. And a couple of them said, I want to know more about this. I want to know more about love and logic. I want to know more about connected parenting. And so I was kind of hesitant, but another professional in our area that kind of works as a family and school connection specialist, she asked if we could do it together. And so we're going to try it out. So that's kind of what I'm putting myself in an uncomfortable situation, or just something new, I guess, that I would encourage everyone to think about, like, what is that you can do to move yourself forward professionally and just kind of continue to grow too. This I thought just would be fun to put on here because this was the day I received the award. My family, my husband and my 3 sons. Something that kind of came out of that day that I wasn't expecting was the pride that my kids had. And so if you are a nominee and you know, thinking about that, just they got to come and sit at the table with me at the ISCA conference, and just for them to see that hard work is rewarded. And it kind of makes me a little emotional thinking about it even, because what a great modeling for our own children, like my own family. They see me working so hard at school and, you know, on my own time at night, and just kids running up to me at every place we go, football games or fairway in town. And for them to know that mom got this award and that she worked hard, and what an example to show our own children. So but if you're nominated, put yourself out there and go for it. I guess that's all I have formally. If there's questions, or if I can fill in more time with other things I'm doing, that's great too. I was telling Britt before we kind of went live here that something I'm also interested in is the therapy dogs in schools, and my superintendent actually approached our whole counseling team about it, and if anybody was interested. And so I've kind of been doing some research about that. So something else kind of on the forefront of my mind. Do we have any questions coming in, Britt, or?
Let's see. Well, we have one comment that is just, one comment that just says, "You're doing a great job, Kinzee. Keep it up."
Oh, that's so kind.
So that came through, and I have to second that. Just listening to you talk about your program is wonderful. I have one coming in right now. They're wondering about the nomination process, but then they said, "Let me explain." So I think that means they're typing more into their question.
No problem.
So while that's still coming in, if anyone else has questions for Kinzee about her program, or anything she's talked about, or, you know, just things that you're thinking about doing that maybe she can you know, weigh in on, or give examples of what she's done in that situation. We have another comment that came in. "Thanks for sharing concrete examples of your work to share with others." And I would agree, that's always helpful to have examples of things that how you've put a process into place and how it's worked, and I think that's great.
Thank you. And I love to share. So I know my email's on the screen. I've had people email me all throughout this year just saying, do you have a lesson idea for this? Or I love to share. So if you are struggling with anything or just want to share ideas, don't be afraid to just email and I'll send back to. One thing, a question I do get often just from other counselors is ISCA and ASCA both teach, our role with behaviors and kind of where we fit into that role in the administrative office up front. And I guess my opinion differs maybe a little bit from a lot of counselors, but I use it in the right way, I feel. So I am kind of the third person in line for discipline and office referrals from our principal, assistant principal, and then kind of me. But the thing is, the way I look at that is I'm not going to lay out any consequences for students, but I kind of look at it as in a parenting role where I have expectations for kids too. It's not just fun and games when they're in my room. And so setting those expectations, but then also teaching them that there are consequences, good and bad, for their actions. And I find that sometimes in those moments are when my relationship with kids grows so much. I can think of a first grader that I have right now that he was having trouble at recess, and I was called to go help at recess, like as in a disciplinary role. And when I got there, he was biting me, and it was just very escalated. And so after we calmed down and we got into the school and the situation had, diminished quite a bit, that one situation really brought him closer to me. And it seems absurd, but then he could process with me how those big emotions really feel. And I got to witness it for him, because really in my position as an elementary counselor, my ultimate goal is to helping them not have as many of those escalated situations and knowing how to cope when it's their worst moment. And I think parents feel a little security in that too if I respond to something, because I know so much about what they're dealing with at home and how they're handling it in their family with that, and maybe even have had conversations, with their outside therapist. And so I kind of look at it with a holistic view instead of like I'm serving as the principal and that's not my role. So I try and kind of turn it a little bit. I don't like to hand out like in-school suspensions or anything like that, but I also feel like some of those conversations with parents in those moments are when the best two-way communication happens and compassion for them. So I feel like we can use those kind of unfortunate situations to our advantage sometimes. So that's a question I get a lot from groups. But
so we have a question.
Okay.
Wondering about your use of time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sorry. How much of your time amounts to large group guidance, small group individuals, etc.?
Yep. Okay. So on a typical day, I have about 2 large group guidance lessons. So about an hour. I do a lot of individual sessions. So I probably have 7 to 10 scheduled individuals every day. And I only meet with individuals for about 20 minutes, just because I find that for a 6, 7, 8-year-old attention, that's about as the best I can get then. And then I have a lot of responsive kids, which I'm really proud of, but it makes the day a little stressful, as many of you can see. I have kids stop in all the time and just are having a bad moment or just want to tell me about what they're doing this weekend. So I just keep a little sheet on my desk that is every student I see that day I write down. Oh, and this week I bet there's 15 names on it every day. So even if it's a 5-minute little chat, I write their name down, because if I need to use that, as a advocating for my program or for more counselors in our district, I want to have that information. In another year, we're going to be opening another elementary. So the building I'm in right now will go from preschool through first grade. We're still going to have close to 500 kids in that grade span, but I want to make sure that a new building opening doesn't mean that we're sharing counselors between buildings again. So I'm kind of focused on that. So along with that time on task collection too, our district is going through Counselor Academy again. Many of us have already done it, but it's been 9-10 years ago. And this is Sue Shermer's last year that she's doing it. So we really wanted to get in on that, and also having the new edition of the ISCA model out. So we've been doing time on task through the ISCA collection too. And then I just try quarterly to share out my data on my contact with kids, no matter if it's whole group, small group, or individuals, with my principals. I do that because I think it's good for them to see on paper, but I would not hesitate in saying that they see what I do all the time and are valuing the role that we play in schools. And then I'm looking at my schedule. I have a kindergarten and a first grade small group every day. And then I have 1 to 2 lunch bunches every day. And then sometimes in the afternoon, I have a couple days a week, I have another small group. So I would say I have 2 whole group lessons every day, 2 to 3 small groups every day, and I don't know, 8-ish scheduled individuals, and I probably have 8 more at least drop-ins. I also tend to be a really popular reward for kids. And I think that all falls back to that connection with kids. Like it's not about what I'm doing with them. It's not about the My Little Ponies I have in my office. It's about me playing My Little Ponies with them. So I do a lot of rewards for students. So, they earn their 3 stars for the morning. They get to spend 5 minutes in Mrs. Bryte's room with me. So that contributes to a little bit of those drop-in kids, but I bet we have 5 to 10 kids that are on reward programs that part of their reward is to come to my room for 5 minutes. That's a little bit of my day. Fridays we have our counseling PLC, so that kind of changes my Friday a little bit in the afternoons. Does that answer your question, if that was yours? Hopefully.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so next, just a comment that they'd like to, someone would love to see an example of your social story.
Yes, I tried really hard to get permission to be able to show one of those, and I think everyone was hesitant to let their child. I asked for parent permission from 5 of my students, and nobody wanted to give it. So I apologize for not having that. I could put a blank one up without a kid's face, but those are kind of personal because it's emphasizing skills that student is working on. So I think without those parents knowing what this audience would be, for sure. But I can still try and work on that and email those out if anybody wants that.
The question that was coming in about the nomination process, it's here.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
how did your intern student find out about the ISCA School Counselor of the Year opportunity? Obviously, it's a hope and a dream to be a School Counselor of the Year, but I'm not sure anyone outside of our world knows about it.
Yeah. Good
How
point.
do administrators, teachers, interns become aware of the opportunity without tooting your own horn? So if you want to talk about your intern, then I can answer the second part of the question from the board perspective.
Yeah, so I think the way that she shared it with me was, so she was a Drake student, and she was spending like 2 days a week or a day and a half a week with me, and then she would go to her class at Drake and they would talk about their experiences that week. And I believe what happened was she was sharing things, and the professor pulled her aside and said that you should nominate Kinzee for this based on what she was sharing that she was doing. And I commend her. She has a job now, Anna Wernemont, and she challenged me sometimes. She would say, like, I don't understand why you're doing this, or what is this happening? Because, I obviously have plans that I have ready for when kids come into my office, but a lot of times, as we know, they take it a different direction. And she felt like her wheels were kind of spinning sometimes. And I was really encouraging her to let that kind of happen on its own and build the trust and relationship first. And then she could get deeper as they were more comfortable with her. I think she was aware of it from her counseling classes or her professor there. One thing that I think is that we need to nominate each other. So we need to, I know that I have nominated teachers and people, adults that are interacting with my own kids for other teaching awards too, because of what this has provided for me. And so I think as counselors, we should be nominating other counselors also. So that's a good, I don't know how to totally address that, but those are some ideas I have.
And then from the ISCA board perspective on
Yeah.
the nomination process. So when we open up nominations, which happens every year during National School Counseling Week, we send out the email to all of our members. I also believe that the awards chair, who this year it's Sarah Majoris, she's an elementary school counselor in Des Moines. We have a contact list for administrators. So I do believe that the nomination email is sent to administrators in the state. I can't guarantee, because I'm not on the awards committee, that we have a complete administrator list, but I know it's something that we've been working towards over the last few years of building those better contacts. But it is put out on social media, it is emailed to all of our members, and I do believe it goes to the AEAs, it's put out on the listservs, and it's shared with the administrators that we do have in our database. And we'll continue to push that out. So, but it's absolutely a great comment. How do people who aren't school counselors, but who witness our work, how do they become aware of it without us being like, hey, you should nominate me for this award? It's a valid point, and it is something that we're working on, building the relationship between ISCA and the administrations in the state.
Yeah.
Another question just came in. Oh, go ahead, Kinzee.
I was just gonna say, we work so closely with families. I wonder if there's some kind of a communication that more just like lay people would see, you know, like just, and maybe it's even recognition of I know my district did a really good job of putting me on the website and all that, so that people are aware there is the award based on people that have received it too. I don't know, but yeah, that's a tough one, because I know there's so many counselors in Iowa that are doing the same things I am, and it's just lucky that I was nominated.
New question.
Okay.
How are you bringing awareness in your building during School Counseling Week next month?
Ooh, good one. I just printed out last week the the calendar of the day-to-day events, and I use my Twitter account really just for school things, and so I'll be posting on Twitter with kids, and the signs that the ISCA makes for us, and I talk about it in my classes, and I also do one day of the week I put stuff in the teacher's lounge, like thank you for being a part of my program, with treats, like it's sweet being your school counselor. I did one year with like a candy bar, so they could fill little cups full of candy and stuff. I like to put things in front of people in a non-pushy way. So I kind of put it back on I appreciate them, instead of like you should appreciate me and send me thank you notes. Like I appreciate you, and I'm recognizing all that you guys do to support my program. So those are a couple of things that I have in mind.
And just to back off what Kinzee just said about downloading, ISCA puts together an entire promotional toolkit that you can use, downloads that you can use, different themes for each day, and it's all free and on their website that you can utilize. And it has templates and things too to help you communicate within your building. So I would highly recommend checking that out. There's a link to that right on the ISCA homepage of how to get involved with National School Counseling Week. It's a great week to really say, counselors are awesome. This is what we're doing. This is the difference we're making. And I'm saying we, even though I'm not a counselor. I'm on the board and I support everything you guys are doing. And so when I say we, I mean you guys are doing wonderful things. And that week is such a great opportunity to toot your own horn, shout it from the rooftops, and take advantage of all that free publicity that the templates that they put together at ISCA. Do we have any other questions for Kinzee? We have about 5 minutes left in our webinar time. Well, while we're waiting to see if anything else comes in, I want to thank everyone for joining. And Kinzee, thank you so much for putting together all of this information and sharing with us all the things that you do every day. If you are able to put together kind of a generic social story example and you
Yeah.
email it to me, I can share it with everyone who attended today.
Okay.
If that's something that you're able to put together in the future, I can distribute that if it comes to it. So
yeah, I'll work on
just an
that.
option. Okay, not seeing any other questions.
Okay.
I'm going to wrap us up and say thank you again, Kinzee. This was fantastic. And thank everyone for joining us. So have a great, safe, and warm weekend.
Yep. All right. Thank you.